Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Freedom Cast, where we talk about how to get, be, and remain free. Today, I have two of my sisters on with me. I have Chanel and Kimmy. Say hey, ladies.
Hi guys.
Hello.
We're just introducing. So Chanel, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then Kimmy, please tell a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am just excited because I'm with two of my favorite people in the world, my sisters. My name is Chanel. Most people know me as Miss 5678. I'm a dancer, choreographer, um, a mother, a woman of faith, a woman of God. And I'm just excited to be able to do all of these components in career life and love and have just an amazing tribe. So I'm a nurturer, I'm a mentor, I'm an encourager, and I'm inspired and inspirer. So, I mean, yeah, man.
All of that. Kimmy?
Hey everybody. I'm Kimmy. I am absolutely blessed to know these two ladies. I am a third grade teacher. I am a daughter, a sister, friend. What other labels do I hold? Dancer. I've had the pleasure of dancing with Chanel for many, many years. And she was nice enough to introduce me to Steph, who's now become my chosen family.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. And it's the beauty of just having the chosen family. I have biological sisters. I love them, but you two are the sisters that I chose, so
Amen.
it's beautiful and I love it, love it, love it. So thank you. Thank you for being here. So today we are going to be talking about what it means to have or what it means to be free in your relationship. What that looks like, what are the signs of it, and then on the other side, what are the signs that mean you don't have freedom in a relationship? So either one of you can go first, and we'll talk about romantic relationships, just platonic friendships, even acquaintanceships, like what it means to have the freedom to be you.
I think for myself, in all of those areas, I've tried my hardest, and I think I do live by this in most ways, to be the same person, and to be allowed to be the same person in every relationship. So that means if it's a business relationship, if it's an acquaintanceship, I love that sound of that. If it's a romantic relationship, if it's a friendship, a sisterhood, um, being able to be who I am in every setting, that is freedom to me. And also being allowed to um, have respect for the relationships I'm in, and that therefore I can accept um, any critique or instruction or any sort of corrective thing about me that would help me grow. It's a respect that allows me to be free. It's a give and take, respecting the person and them respecting me enough to make that work. Also, I would say it takes effort, great effort, to be free, because I think freedom, when we use that word, freedom is peace. It relates to peace. I think that you two both give me that, and it makes me want to stay vested in the relationship because there's peace there. Um, and it's also like I learned how to have peace by watching YouTube as well. So I not only learn, so that's another aspect of freedom, is learning from the relationships I have with you, and just learning from relationships. Period. There's freedom in that. So that's what I would say about freedom. Um, in my romantic relationship, I think the foundation of friendship really helps, because we're able to be free when we speak. It doesn't restrict us from speaking. I think the relationship that we have with Christ helps us to be free when we speak as well. And when we have to face some hard times, or we're facing hard times, or getting through hard times, there's freedom in that across the board, because we have friendship and we have relationship with Christ. So we're able to use those hand in hand. And especially when you have a kingdom building relationship, and you both have not put yourself together. When God puts it together, it's completely different. And there's a different responsibility in it. But I will say freedom means to me peace. It means growth. It means respect. It definitely means love. It definitely means patience, because Lord knows.
Woo!
Lord knows. All my life I struggled with patience.
Oh, we're all being honest. We all
and I also think that like being able to be who you are freely helps with that. And I think that is freedom. So and I gotta go to my corner right now and think about more freedom.
Yeah, yo, we could end it here. Like, you know what I mean? You said so much. I mean, I love that you mentioned peace, and it's true, and just talking about our relationship, I remember we had that conversation, like, you were like, I didn't know if I could be silly around you, because when you're just entering a relationship, we're talking about a friendship.
That's right.
That blossomed into a sisterhood, but you don't know if you can be free to be silly with someone or goofy. But like, when you realize that I'm the goofiest, like silliest, you know what I mean? That's freedom. When you feel that you are not being judged for being you. We all have our own quirks. We all do our own things. You know what I mean? Like, let's say if someone sees a bug, how they act, not saying any names, not saying any names, but
I take off 10 yards running.
Yeah. So it's like, it's just freedom. It's freedom in knowing that. And I feel like, Kimmy, I'm about to shoot the ball right over to you, but I feel like when you and I met, and got to hang out in LA, it was just like natural, like boom, like that's it. There's when you hang around really good people, those really good people can meet anyone, because their attitudes will just merge with everybody. And so I can honestly say that about both of you. In any circle, like it doesn't matter the race, the religion, you can bring anybody around anybody, because they'll just kind of flow in. So that's the beauty of this relationship. That's the freedom there. So Miss Kimmy, what were you about to say, Chanel?
I was gonna say, I showed somebody a video of I said, this is my sister. We were dancing over the weekend, and I showed them the video. That's your sister? Is it by blood or the lady? And I was like,
don't worry about it.
I was like, no, but that's my sister. And she's like, oh, okay. She was just like, don't back by it. But I really like, I'm so comfortable saying my sister, because that's what it is. Like, I have sisters. And I've gained sisters, so it's like I'm blessed, So I don't want to take it down. Go ahead, Kim.
No, I'm really trying to figure out how I'm going to follow up both of how you defined freedom, because like so much of it, when you were saying, I was like, yes, that's exactly how I feel. I feel like so much of freedom is like, I loved what you said too, Chanel, about like the effort that goes into sustaining and maintaining freedom, and for me, a big part of freedom is also like trust. It for sure is like peace, ability to be 100% yourself, all those light parts, all those dark parts, all those like growing pains moments, the freedom to be able to grow at different times and have patience with that. If we're speaking about freedom in regards to relationship, like for me, the biggest thing is freedom to recognize how like I am within myself, like freedom within myself. I think something I had misconceptions about freedom in relationship was not being aware of how I was showing up, and how that was affecting either my freedom to participate in the relationship, whether it was work relationships, friend relationships, romantic relationships, but also how am I showing up in this space of relationship that either doesn't allow me to be me and have that freedom, or doesn't allow them to be them and doesn't have that freedom. And I feel like that takes both parties who are in the relationship to be self-aware, to know how you show up, to know your communication patterns, because all of those ingredients go into the batter of what makes a great relationship. And
Come on, Kimmy.
yeah. And
Listen,
what is
I'm
it,
like this.
to make you
I'm like
happy?
this.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Whip it up, and put it in the oven. And
Yeah.
I'll be real honest. Ding. Take it out, let it cool off. But yeah, I don't think I was very self-aware for a very long time. And I definitely think that affected my ability to be free in relationships, but also the ability for people to be free around me. And it's a growing process too. Like, I think having grace with people is something we take for granted. Like Chanel, you mentioned that word peace a lot. And I feel like part of peace too is just like giving people space and giving yourself space to get there. Like if that doesn't mean right now, like get there eventually. And that's a tricky bridge because it's also like there needs to be accountability.
Come on.
Yeah.
In relationships. So it's like that, how can I live in this gray space of I'm going to hold space for you to get there, but also like you need to put an effort to get there. And I think, again, platonic relations, romantic relationships, like Chanel, I love that word effort you used. I'm going to use that. Like it takes effort. It takes patience and effort, and those sometimes can feel combative. And again, that's where I go back to, okay, I need to be self-aware. Like, am I feeling that's combative because I want something out of this relationship and I'm not having patience? That's another thing I feel like affects freedom in relationship is, does this person want to authentically engage with me? Do they know me well enough that they just enjoy being in relationship? Or do they have an idea of what I can give them and are interested in that idea of what they can receive from me? And that's why they're in relationship. So I feel like freedom in relationship too is also like intent of why you enter.
Right. Desire.
Yeah. And again, like I've made a lot of mistakes and I've learned from a lot. I'm sure I'll continue to make a lot of mistakes, but I feel like that end result of peace that both of you were talking about is like you have to do all the work and continue in all the work. Like you can't just be 3 months into a relationship, do all the work, feel like you've solidified that, and then like walk away and let it fester.
That's good, Kimmy.
Don't get me started on that.
Get started.
Okay, so I will say what takes away from your freedom is stagnant, not having a desire, laziness, procrastination, being content and complacent. Stops you from being and feeling free.
Yes.
I would say selfishness, disobedience. I will say, what else? The ability to, not the ability, not being self-aware, not being able to listen, not being, you have to be willing and able. But it goes back to desire, because I remember God telling me one time while I was entering, I wouldn't say a relationship, because you guys have seen me like go through my phase of like, I ain't dating nobody.
Yeah.
I'm all sick. Because I think I was literally at this phase of like, you know what? I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I don't want the same results. I don't want the same disappointments. I don't want to feel discouraged. I am a person who is very strong-minded and strong-willed.
Sure enough.
So if you're making me question, myself on those areas, it's like, all right, I've gone back to the drawing board. When Kimmy said it, she said it very well. I've made mistakes, and I'm probably going to continue to make some mistakes that I haven't seen from a hind's eye, or somebody else might see a different, lens, right?
Yep.
But I will say that 2018 was a big year to 2019 of the growth, and going back to the drawing board, literally writing down where my first hurt was in a relationship. Why do I get to this point in relationships and then it becomes complex? It becomes non-committed. Folks detach. And I found that just even going back to my book and reading where my first hurts were, and sometimes you have to write the name. Sometimes you have to write who did what. Did you do this? And did that person do what? Saying what they did that hurts you also makes a difference in how you think about it.
It sounds like you are saying that like that first step to freedom is really taking the responsibility for your own part
That's
in
right.
everything. I think sometimes we're like, yeah, it was only that one person's fault. It was 100% their fault.
Yeah.
That's unrealistic. You know, so you have to take that time to, and it's hard work. It's hard work to say.
I cried. I got angry.
I bet.
Because I was like, I realized writing some of this stuff down, like it came down to this. I'm loyal until I'm not loyal anymore. I'm loyal to someone who isn't loyal to me. I'm loyal to someone who doesn't have the capacity of being loyal. I'm loyal to someone who that wasn't the agenda, and that wasn't the intention. That wasn't the expectation. I'm loyal to expectation that I have, not that they had, but that I had. So when I look at that list and I go back, I had to say, you know what? Let me stop focusing on other people and focus on where I start and where I enter in these situationships, relationships, something ships, something ships, because I learned from, well, let's keep it real. I'm in my 40s. I ain't gonna tell you.
Wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it.
Thriving, doing great.
And so I've lived. I think what helps is also being realistic.
Yes.
That's freedom, is being realistic. Because somebody easily said to me, hey, when you get into I guess maybe a dating, or when you meet somebody, you can eliminate the frustration just by asking the right questions.
Yes.
Yep.
And so asking the right questions for me is, what is your faith life like? What's your spirit life like? Meaning, like, where you go to church? Who's your pastor?
How's your relationship with God? And
what's your relationship with God? Have you accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior? That's something that I desire.
For you.
I desire a man of God.
Sure.
And so the other question was, do you want a wife? Because I'm not interested in being a moment. I'm not interested in teaching you for the moment. I'm not interested in you taking my energy. And I'm not interested in playing house. And I'm definitely not interested in kinda.
Right. Maybe. Sorta.
But some people are, and that's okay too. You just need to vocalize.
Right. And so that's
values.
So that's what I was going to say to speak to, Kimmy. Chanel brought up a really good point about realistic expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does that help us in any relationship?
Yeah,
and you won't be disappointed if you know the expectation.
Right.
And if there's no expectation, you won't be disappointed.
Right.
Right. And that's not to say that the fantasy doesn't sound great, because it really does. And I am guilty of getting sucked into that too. Like I have entered into a relationship, whether it be platonic or romantic, because I was serving my own ego.
Oh, talk about it.
I have totally done that. And that's when you, like Chanel and Steph, like, you're talking about these realistic expectations. Like, love is in the practicality of love. Like, love is in relationship, again, like family relationships, friendships, romance, like, work, all of it. It's in the practicality of it. And to your point, the realistic expectations. How did you communicate on those? Did you both hear those? Are you both respecting boundaries when one of those is crossed? Can you do conflict resolution while putting those, like, we all respond to hurt. Hurt is really hard to get over. I know I have been quick to communicate when I am in hurt, and that is the wrong choice for me. But can you have patience to arrive at conflict resolution, because that is how you care for someone. And if someone has vocalized like, hey, I feel cared for when, like, I think back to that love languages book, you know, where people give and receive love in different ways. If somebody has communicated to you that quality time is how they feel cared for, then you will make time for that person, because that's how they feel validated in your relationship. Even if it means, like, if you're a physical touch person, even if it means you receive love differently because you recognize how someone else is different from you and you're trying to make it work between the two of you. Just like if I'm in relationship with somebody who, like, acts of service are how they feel loved, like, I'm going to, instead of sending a text like, I think you're the best person ever, let me list the ways in which I think you're amazing, like, that's not how they feel validated. I'm going to do an act of service to show them that I care about them. And I feel like it's those realistic expectations, but also like understanding of the two of you and how you navigate that space between you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important. I think, like, in social media times where we can compare ourselves to other people, so then we start kind of letting that leach into our own relationships. And it's like each individual relationship has got to be run by the people involved. So, okay, this is a friendship, right? Okay, the three of us are a friendship. We're not sitting here looking about, oh, how this one does that, how this one does that, because we all have our own personalities. We all have our own things that we like, we don't like. We express that, we go with that, we move with that. And it's like, you can only have that freedom when you take the time to know someone, you know what I mean? And when you spend quality time and when you're able to invest. And now we can be ourselves. We can feel that freedom. You know, we can be silly. We can be
and we do.
And we do. and bi-coastal, we did it in the West Coast. We did it on the East Coast.
Right.
Get your way to have
I
that
smell
freedom.
another trip. That's what I smell.
Overseas. Let's go. Let's get gone. But seriously, we have realistic expectations of, like, I accept you for who you are. And that's not to mean that we all don't need to grow. As long as we're living, we need to grow. But you have the patience with someone. You have the ability to say, okay, I know you're in your growth process, and I'm not going to put an unrealistic expectation on you that I know you can't fulfill. That's the root of disappointment.
That's right.
An unrealistic expectation. So okay, all right, you're able to do this. I want this, but that's not where you are right now. Can you grow to that? Of course. You know what I mean? So it's just like, all right, let me really look at this and see my part. It all comes back to our part and taking the responsibility. I love what you said about love languages, Kimmy. You know, love languages aren't for us, they're for our partners. You know, we're not going to show our partner how we like to be, like, they show us that way. And we have to show love how they like to be loved. Like, I believe there's a lot of selfishness, you know, in relationships that block you up. At the opposite end of freedom is that bondage. And so if you're in bondage, you can't be free in the relationship. That means you're going to hide things. That means you're just going to do things that kill the relationship. Like, it's it's in a downward spiral, you know? So it's like, how do you get out of that? I mean, what are ways that people can feel comfortable or be made to feel comfortable in a relationship?
I think communication is a big one.
Huge.
Emotionally communicating too.
Communicating. Say what?
Emotionally communicating. I think that I thought of that because I think that some people could be emotionally unavailable and they don't know how to communicate. So emotionally communicating also helps in those spaces of where, so for example, I think my love languages, I know my love languages changed from 2019 to 2021.
Okay.
They just
so love languages can evolve.
They absolutely can.
Sure. Okay.
Because I looked out, you know, I'm always looking at notes.
I know.
Looking at the notes and the facts.
Yes.
So what I did was for myself.
The patterns.
That's right. I looked at my emotional I guess the way that I communicate with my emotions from 2018 to 2020 now, right? And I also looked at my love languages from 2018, 2019 to right now. And I think that because of the relationship I'm in right now, there's some things that took a turn because of where I'm at right now in growth.
Okay.
And so those love languages that I had before from 2018 to 2019 are no longer the same because my needs are different.
Right.
So I wouldn't have looked at that because, I'm always looking for reasons to grow.
Yes.
I'm always looking for reasons to expand. And I'm also looking for reasons to help others expand around me.
Yeah.
Because it can be very frustrating being among people that you're trying to get somewhere and we're like-minded, we're going one place.
Like-minded.
And trigger. And I think if we're same-minded, yeah, I don't want to trigger you, yo. And we have to tell the backstory because people be like, she's crazy. Same-minded, and on one accord. And I think that when we are if you're trying to be around people who are on one accord with you, and we have sort of the same goal sets, or like we have the same sort of mindset, and we're trying to go to the same place, not evolving where you're at could be like stagnant because now the relationship changes. I mean, we have friendships, I can honestly say, between us three, right? So I will say this. So Steph and I have people that we were communicating with, Ace Boom Coon, right, is tight as a board, that we're just not anymore. You know what I mean? Not that we don't love them. We don't love them. It's just right now where we are, our relationship, has changed. These schedules have changed. Doesn't mean that we don't love them and we can't be who we are to them. It's just that right now, that's not where we are, right?
Right.
Same goes for Kimmy and I. We have dance communities that we don't even interact with no more, that we thought would be forever. And it's just, it's not the same. And we've managed to stay between myself, Kimmy and Juanita, we've managed to stay tight as a board, but other extensions of our dance community, we just have not. And I will say, where we are right now, as a nation or as a community, also takes and plays a huge role in how free we are.
Ooh.
And because, we're looking at a pandemic where you got to see the threshold of where you are with them, right? Where does your relationship stand with people across the board? Business, personal, love, all of that, family,
everything.
And if it goes back to what I was going to say, God told me, and what really determined whether or not I would interact with this person that I met. If a man wants, he will. And that was the title. But I applied that to anybody now, because if they want, they will. And I really, really believe that. If a person wants to be in your life, they will do everything to be there.
They'll make the time.
This is a testament here.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how busy the three of us are. I can honestly say it's at some point or another, I'm going to hear from Kimmy. I'm going to hear from Steph. Steph is going to hear from me. Kimmy's going to hear from me. And that is in constant desire, and that is a want, and that's a will. So everybody else, which is excuses. Sorry.
It's true. Nah, it's true. It is. And you brought up something really good. When you were talking, I saw a flower in a garden surrounded by a bunch of weeds. The flower cannot grow because the weeds are right there. So, I mean, I was just talking about this earlier. You have to have the right circle around you. Yes. That's where you get that freedom. You know what I mean? Talking about the challenges and having having those people around you. I mean, Kimmy, can you speak to that point? Like,
Yes, please.
what is it? Yeah, like what is it? Why is it important, and what does it mean to have the right people around you? It's like having the right soil, all that cultivation, that good stuff in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chanel, you brought up like earlier, on the first or second question, that all of us, like when you were reflecting, you went back and you wrote down the names of people, like the first time you felt hurt or the first time you felt disappointment. And I think all of us, like, talk about seeds and soil and the nutrients in it. Like, all of us have a history.
Yeah.
It looks, it sounds, it smells, it feels different because we are all unique in our own lived experience, but all of us have a history. So awareness of that history is like step one. And a lot of times, if you're not aware of the history you carry with you, and also how that manifests in you, and whether it's a trigger for you, whether it's you seek out people to recreate your childhood experiences because you're trying to create a new resolution and a more palpable resolution to your traumas, like, you need to be aware of that.
Wow. Keep talking. Go ahead, Kim.
I speak on it only because I was so unaware of it for so many years. And I know that people that I was in a relationship with, like both of us, I've been in relationships where both of us were able to be aware of past experiences that we had in our childhood that were unfavorable, however you want to label them.
Sure.
They were adverse child experiences. We were able to acknowledge them and communicate them, but how that manifested, one, within ourselves and then within the relationship, like, we both weren't there yet on our growth journey. And I feel like it's so much more than just saying it. Like, you can confess and then like move along and repeat, like rather rinse repeat, you know,
Right.
cycle. But the only way you're going to break that cycle is being actionable on it. So I feel like that's the other piece too. It's like, Steph, you talked about the weeds. You have to acknowledge when there's a weed in your garden, and you need to pull that shit up, like get that out of there, because it's deadly to your growth. Now, if you don't want to grow, leave all the weeds. Like, some of them are pretty, you know, what dandelions are.
Those
are cute. Yeah, like, go for it if you don't want to grow. But I think if you acknowledge that there is presence in your life that is holding you back from making the growth that you want to make, are willing to put in the work to make, and think it will make you a better person, whatever that means to you, you got to yank it. And I think where people get confused, I know I certainly made this mistake, is like when we get into binary thinking about like pulling out weeds. Just because you have put distance or space between you and another person you are in relationship with doesn't mean that that distance and space is going to be there forever, because growth and change and evolution happens at different paces for everyone. So there's like, there was an analogy used the other day. This girl I follow, I call her a girl. She's an amazing like anti-racism, decolonization educator. Her name is Louisa Jurin. She goes by According to Louise on Instagram. Amazing human. But she uses this analogy. I want to make sure I'm crediting her when I say this, 'cause it's not my words. But she uses this analogy of like shutting the door with people who are either unwilling to do the work to like acknowledge systems and structures that are harmful to all of us in community and society, or just in relationship with you. And she talks about how like the door isn't locked for eternity. Like, I'm shutting the door for now because it's what's keeping me safe. And but like, maybe a year from now, like, you can knock on that door and it's my choice whether I open it or not. But like, the door isn't shut forever. And it's whoever shut the door's choice to determine whether or not they want to reopen it or not. So I feel like when we do decide to pull those weeds out, everybody's like, oh, well, I'm losing them forever. And it's like this grieving process of loss because you think they're gone forever. And I feel like that's where boundaries, like when people put boundaries for themselves, get confused. Like, no, you're putting secure boundaries. Make that fence around that soil, you know, it will keep the weeds, the rabbits, like everything else out. And fences and boundaries are there to help you grow, to reach your potential. It's not a bad thing to build a fence. Keeping people out is sometimes healthy. And it doesn't mean they're out forever. You could pick that fence up once you've reached your growth or
Sure.
next garden or whatever. But yeah, I feel like pulling out the weeds is really important. I don't want to minimize how hard it is.
Yeah.
It's super hard. And there is a loss that happens, even if it's a temporary loss. So I don't want to minimize that either. That's tough to do.
It is tough. It's difficult. You know what I mean? And I love all of what you said because it just makes sense. You know what I mean? Sometimes we stay in these friend spaces or relationships because it's comfortable and it feels good. And we're fearful of what it looks like on the other side of that. But we've seen in the pandemic that space was needed. We needed the space to grow. You know, like if you did not do some self-growing and some really good introspection during the pandemic, it was a waste. And I'm like, listen,
talk about it.
we have to go through all this chaos. We might as well have gotten something out of it. You know what I mean? Like we had time to just sit and pause and chill and really focus on ourselves. And in that space, you realize who you need to back up from and who's going to be closer around you, because in the midst of chaos or when adversity comes, that's when you see who your team is, your A1s. You know what I mean? It's like, because in a way too, the weeds sometimes uproot themselves. Sometimes they just, you don't even have to pull them up. They'll just yank themselves
that
out.
Fertilizer goes in and
that Roundup, you know, it's like, okay, they'll just get on out of there, you know, so it's really important. And I mean, we have to look at that and why people stay in these relationships, platonic and, you know, romantic relationships, because you don't even feel like you can exist outside of them. And I like that you said the fence can be pulled up. It's not concrete, eternal, you know, gorilla glue, bonded in there. You can roll that fence up if needed. But when you were saying that, I was thinking like, some people show why you need to separate from them. So like we're talking about, you know, emotional intelligence and emotional stability. It's Mental Health Month, Meg, shout out, you know what I mean? Hey, when you separate from someone or you take a pause from someone, how they react really determines if you even want to continue a relationship with them when you're ready to go back. Like if someone cuts a fool or just acts up, you're like, this is why I needed to see how you were going to act in this space. So it's really, it's important. The space is huge on just revealing everything that needs to happen. Like I need space. And sometimes people can be very selfish. You say you need space, they make it all about them. Well, what I'm saying, I need the space to grow. What are you talking about you for? Help me.
I used an I statement. I didn't use a you statement.
I tried to do it right. I said I, and how'd you make it about you? KK? Like what happened? You know what I mean? Would you
know what? It's funny you say that though, because like that's also something I messed up for so long as well. Like I would personalize other people vocalizing they need space to me. And I would personalize that, which like, hey, centering yourself and somebody else communicating to you what they need. Like, come on, Kim, grow up. But yeah, I feel like part of that too is knowing that when people react to something you've communicated about, that says more about them and where they are than you. And I feel like part of what you're talking about too has to do with self-esteem. Like, do you love yourself enough to pull out those weeds, to walk away? I can't say that I always was there in all of my past relationships, whether they were with friendships or romantic relationships. Like some relationships I've been in, I've been able to communicate boundaries and been like, you know what, like this boundary has been crossed enough. I've communicated in a way that both of us can understand. Like, I think we need to take a little bit of some space from each other. Honestly, sometimes somebody else has had to say it to me and just been like, I'm going to walk away because this doesn't seem healthy for either of us. And in the moment, that was really, really hard to hear. But like with hindsight, wow, how grateful am I that like they were able to see that. And like, you know, we like the person that I was in relationship with at the time, like, thank goodness they saw it, because like we like the way we were interacting in relationship with where we were at that time, it was not healthy.
Right.
And like we did need to walk away from each other. And I do think like a lot of that boils down to self-esteem. Am I personalizing somebody else's experience, which is like, to your point, none of your business. Take a step back. And I think the other thing too, though, is like living in course correction. Like, do I have the confidence and self-awareness that if somebody is communicating to me something that's not working between the two of us, like, sure, there's emotional content in there, feel that, but then move past that and be able to accept that, hey, someone's observing something about me that could potentially be harmful to them and also to me. Like, it's a growth opportunity for you as well. So can I live in course correction where I can hear that clearly and accept it and then explore options to work on that so that like I can remain in relationship with this person and be active in the relationship with myself? Because like I would love to say that I'm great at everything and like, you know, what, like, yeah, because that feels good. It does not feel good to hear that you do things that are either harmful to another person or harmful to yourself. So like, live in course correction, have the self-esteem to do so. And again, I say that saying like, woo, that was not my experience for a very long time.
Right. So you speak from experience, and that's how I feel like those who live the experience are the best teachers. So Chanel, can you speak just expound a little bit more on the course correction, but in terms of maturity, why having maturity? I know, I got you.
I was just about to say that.
We here, girl. The Holy Spirit, we here.
You know.
Speak about that maturity, why that, you know, kind of unlocks some of those bonds, having the maturity in any relationship.
So I would say this, a couple things came up. God would just reminded me, like, Chanel, most of your relationships before, you know, 2016 were all toxic. And I've always had a toxic example in front of me. And so it took me to be in relationships that look like the toxic ones in front of me in order for me to understand where my accountability is. So if you want something different, you got to do something different.
Come on.
I became my mom beefing in my relationships. When I tell you, take my shoe up and throw it.
Dawn.
Turn into Don. And then my mom, you know, it took me being pregnant with my daughter and me like completely destroying my luxurious loft space, being violent in that relationship, for my mom to like cry her eyes out, like, you know, coming over. And we're just having like a serious moment. I can laugh about it now because I've apologized. I've accepted responsibility. I've apologized to my mom, my sisters, and Julian, you know what I mean? I've apologized to my daughter's father and my daughter before she came here. And that's important, to keep apologizing, you know, keep acknowledging where you need to be growing, right? I think that's maturity. Yeah. And having the posture and you have to be mature to accept responsibility and to be able to say it out loud. Whoa. You have to be mature spiritually to hear when there's correction and to accept when there's correction from someone who might hear, you know. And you also need to be ready that if you do grow, because now it's, for me, I'm 40 something woman who still has like, you know, the energy of like a kid, right?
Yes.
And but you know, you're talking to a woman and you're talking to a woman that's well traveled, right? But I would say if it wasn't for this pandemic and it wasn't for being tired of being in the same space, that spiritually I had to grow. And if I didn't spiritually mature, I wouldn't be able to acknowledge all the other things around me that seemed like they would be okay a year ago or 2 years ago. And what I accept, no. Because at the end of the day, when we talk about from a spiritual standpoint, from a faith-based standpoint, we're tied to certain people.
Yeah.
People are assigned to us.
Sure.
And there's an obligation in that. So if we stay stuck and we stay complacent, what happens when we kill that witness for them? So what happened with me was like maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago, God said, well, he always talking to me now. Look. And and he got a little ghetto with me. And I was like, Abba, is that you? Because he sounded a little Ebonic-ish. Because he said, respect the delay. And I was like, hey, he got a gully with it, huh?
Because some respect on the delay.
Right. He said, respect the delay. Like, I was like, oh, okay. Because I mean, I know when I'm speaking,
sure,
but stuff comes up and it's like, I wasn't even thinking about that because 9 times out of 10, I'm thinking about food and what I'm going to eat. So snacking or it, and I'm not saying that I don't say in my word, but I do. And so when I'm thinking about food and God says, respect the delay, that ain't me. Because I ain't thinking about that. I'm thinking about this ordering this food and having it sent, or going to get it or whatever. But long story short, there was something that was happening. I could bring the whole thing. Something was happening, and then it literally was like, respect the delay. And it wasn't for just me, it was for other folks, right? Because I heard this is for me, and then it was like, this for this person. You need to say this aloud. So I stated it. Usually when I get that, I'm like, let me put this out there because somebody else needs to hear it. It ain't just for me. That's one thing. Then a couple weeks ago, before we did the last shifts, God starts downloading because I pray about the topic. I pray about what we're going to address. And then I pray about the questions he wants me to ask. And they usually cut me up first. I mean, not usually. They always come in
right away. Like, I don't think I've ever been on an episode with either one of you where it's like, oh, like, let's start with an icebreaker and like get to it's just like, all right, so what are your childhood dramas?
Yes.
It's like how you showed them, like, oh shoot. Like,
literally.
You have to.
So this was like, he said, check your witness. I was like, what? And I didn't know that I was going to need to check my witness this week. Last week, the week before that, like leading up to the ships, and then up until yesterday, up until 5 a.m. this morning, like legit, check your witness. And I was like, okay, all right. So now I'm self-checking because I always self-check, but I never self-check about how I am perceived in Christ, right? And so I think what I'm wrestling now with is, okay, my personality, he's filtering, he's sifting. He's getting that fine tune, that last fine tune in this next season, this last bit of season, going into the next season. And he's sifting and he's like, all right, I'm cleaning you up. I need you to be completely refined and release yourself from like anger and your temperament you need to be tempered when you're dealing with some of my people, with all of my people that I send your way, because your witness is at stake. And that means career, life, and love. As simple as today, being coarse and being not empathetic and being, having a soft response versus a coarse response is the difference. And I say that to say, in relationship, when you ask me about course correction, there it is. Yeah. Is how you respond and react to certain things. Now, I ain't no doormat, and I certainly sucker free. And I say that hashtag sucker free. I ain't had a man prove me wrong yet. Yeah. And I hate saying that because it's like I'm putting the men and the women on a women versus men type of battle of the sexes, and that's not really what I mean. What I mean is I have entered in everything wholeheartedly, 10 toes down, all in, feet in, jumped in. Yo, it's me, 100%. There's no hidden nothing. I tell you all about my flaws. I tell you where I ain't perfect. I'm messy over here, but I'm neat over here. I'm firm when it comes to this. Like, there's no secrets.
Yeah, but
Everything
that
that you
requires
see,
so much self-confidence. Like, you may be entering into a relationship like, I am willing to hear this. I'm willing to go. Like, I always brag about both of you of how, like, you are my models of how to show up, you know, with your friends, with like in romance or whatever, and be, like you said, I'm not a doormat, but I'm in course correction. Like, I always look to both of you with like, okay, I need to get on like the Steph and Chanel level of, okay, I am going to be here. I'm going to be open. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to tell you like it is.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
because I'm going to have the
yeah,
confidence to let you know, like, I'm going to tell you like it is, but also like, I'm going to hear what you have to say in response to that. Like,
mhm.
am I partially responsible for this? And I feel like you both always do such a good job of like, just because I've accepted, like, I've heard what you've said, I've accepted that, like, maybe I need to work on something and I'm going to do that. Doesn't mean that what you said earlier of like, oh, and this also is an issue within relationship. Like, one doesn't negate the other.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. But I feel
Yeah.
like that takes a lot of self-confidence.
A ton of self-confidence and a willingness to be open to be corrected. You know what I mean? There's a level of vulnerability that you reach where you say, I am free enough and I trust someone enough in a romantic or platonic relationship that they can correct me.
Mm-hmm.
And I trust them to know how to correct me. I
Mhm.
trust them to know how to say it to me, because you can't receive everything. We want to, but
Yeah.
if we're being honest, we can't.
I'll be
It's
honest.
we have to be honest. You know what I mean? This could be called the honest cast just as much as it can be called the freedom cast. Got to be honest, you know, Kimmy, and just going back to what you said, Chanel and I always come out swinging hard because
Yes.
we are in a society where
Mm-hmm.
being surface is okay.
Mhm.
And so you just stay on the surface of the relationship and you just stay on the surface of getting to know someone. And then behind closed doors, you could talk trash or you can do passive aggressive things.
Yeah.
No.
Not over here.
Now Chanel
Not
and I
over
are just
here.
alike in that. We're like, hold
Not
on,
over here.
you gotta
No,
stop. Put it
don't.
out there, even if it hurts.
Right.
Because it doesn't, if you say, okay, I'm gonna do it in love, that doesn't mean it's always gonna feel good. If you have to correct someone or say, hey, maybe you should have done this a certain way, a different way, that didn't sound good, or hold on. You do it with relationship. You know what I mean? It's hard to correct some. I just read a quote, like, you can't really correct someone if you don't have a relationship with them. That causes
And you can't
rebellion.
correct somebody who's not ready to receive it.
Who's not ready to, so not ready to receive it, and you don't have the relationship, that causes rebellion.
Right.
And it's going to cause something to be like,
Mm.
you've got to know. And that's why it's so important to really be connected to God. You know, he will lead you in the right conversation to have with someone.
Amen.
We have to know
Amen.
timing. We have to know all about timing. It is so important. You can't just like, oh, I'm going to talk about them. No, don't talk to them now about it. Are they ready to receive it? And do you have the right relationship with them? If not, if those things aren't in the mixing bowl that Kim was mentioning earlier,
It's
you
not
bet
going in the oven.
you or you could try to put it in the oven and it's going to be mushy and lumpy and no one's going to want to eat it. Because that's when you give correction to someone, it's like you're feeding someone food. If you've taken the time, right, to have all the ingredients of what they need, not how we want to give it, just like with the love language. So we have to have correction language as well. How does this person receive correction? How do I have to slide in? Can I just, some people just need it right out the gate. I have to be like, hey, you know what? That wasn't right. Some people have to be like, all right, so remember when you did this? And I see why you did it. I get it. But maybe it could have been like, you have to just kind of shift yourself in that way if you care enough about the relationship. And then on the romantic tip, like, I know I can't be with anyone that I can't correct or they can't correct me. Like, so you have to be able to say, oh, wait a minute, like, you know what, when you said that or when you gave an attitude in that way, that wasn't like, you know what I mean? That wasn't appropriate. That wasn't right. Or maybe you could have done something else. Even if they're like, oh, okay, whatever. The seeds were planted, right? So eventually it's going to be like, okay, well, I hear what you're saying. You know, you're saying it out of love. You know, you have the relationship with someone. You're like, okay, all right, I'm going to change. I'm going to, you know what I mean? It's just taking the time to sit and relax and say, all right, I don't like what they're saying, because nobody likes correction. I don't care what anybody says.
No.
It's uncomfortable.
Nobody
Hard.
likes correction.
It's hard.
It's hard to hear, but when you can learn to love correction, because if you make up your mind that I only want to grow, Chanel said that earlier, I only want to be in places where I want to grow. I only want to grow. Growth takes correction. It takes pruning. That's what the Bible, God prunes, he corrects, he chastises those he loves. We have to be corrected so that we can grow, because we'll have a bunch of dead leaves and limbs on us that do not help with our growth. They have to be cut off and corrected.
And then
so
look at how many people that don't get the benefit of it.
Don't get the benefit. They suffer. Exactly. They don't get the benefit of it. So that's really important. But we are coming to the end of our we just started. So I like to give each guest a moment to just say an affirmation based on the topic we're talking about. So Kimmy, I'll let you go first, please. Just say, something affirming to the listeners about what freedom in a relationship looks like, please.
Yes, of course. I think like when entering into a relationship, like an affirmation that I would say to myself is, and platonic, romantic, whatever, I deserve the freedom to be myself. I deserve the freedom to set boundaries that will allow me to grow, but also allow me to hear how I need to grow. I deserve the freedom to communicate freely on what I need and what I don't. And also the person I am in relationship with deserves all of these freedoms as well.
Yes, yes, and yes.
As I'm talking to you both, God showed me this. If you love me, keep my commandments. So all morning since 5 o'clock this morning till 7 a.m., God was correcting me. And he literally corrected me on several levels, right? So I would say you deserve to have everything that God wants for you. And doing that, you can only do it with freedom. And that entails respect for yourself and those around you, having a desire, having peace in doing it. You cannot freely or be free if you don't have peace. Peace in your mind, peace in your heart, peace in your spirit, peace in your surroundings. You cannot operate without peace. So you deserve peace. And you deserve everything. Like I said, you deserve everything that God has for you. And if you want that, you will. So John 14, verse 15. I have to say it. I love God so much that I will keep his commandments because I know what he has for me next. Anything that he has for me next, I can't get to it unless I'm in obedience and free. And there's freedom in that. So I would say we've said a lot.
Oh, ton.
And I'm grateful for you and I'm so proud of you. I'm excited for you because this is a long time coming and we need this.
Agreed.
And
who better to do it?
Right? Than the amazing S. Jones.
Thank you. I love you both so much. I mean, listeners, you can see why I had them two on. You guys drop gems and all type of diamonds and gold all over the place, and I know, even myself, I'm going to go back and listen and process. And even in this moment, there's a level of growth that's happening because when you talk about things, you are freeing yourself. So this is the whole goal and the purpose of this. So it's beautiful. Thank you so much for gracing the Freedom Cast. Love you. Oh my gosh, you both are amazing. Much appreciated. Thank you for your affirmations. So look, the goal is to go and be free. So go and be free.
Hey.
Thank you for tuning in. We will be back with more blessings.